heart is
Ketwolski. Doodaloo! Hey everybody, Ketwolski here, checking in with another one of our hashtag Earl Grey Pour Up videos. Today we have a few news stories that I do want to go ahead and kind of get through. But before we get into that, for those of you guys who are wondering, we are in the midst of our move currently. So as I talked about a couple of weeks ago, the video quality, style, editing things, and all that jazz is going to progressively get better, worse, all over the place, essentially for at least the next 30 to maybe 45 days, until we finally get settled into whatever house we're going to be staying in inside of our final destination. So I apologize for that. I'm going to do my best to try to continue to keep things updated on the YouTube channel and on social and all that jazz, but obviously my quality may continue to decline and go all over the place, so I do apologize for all of that. But just bear with me for these next couple of weeks and we'll all get through it together. Okay, so we've got a couple of little tiny stories that I do want to talk about today. The first kind of small one is the fact that Star Trek Las Vegas has officially been moved. It has been moved to the 9th, I think to the 9th or the 13th of December of this year. This is obviously in response to the situation still going on with the global pandemic of the coronavirus, which seems like happened like, I don't know, like 100 years ago now, considering all the other stuff that's happening in the world and the life that we're living here in the United States. So, you know, it is what it is, but they officially removed the current dates and then reset it back for December. As far as I know, based off of information that is publicly available, your tickets that you purchased already, if some of you guys have already done that, will still be available for you to utilize in December, so you don't need to worry about going back through and repurchasing more tickets. Now, you may need to get updated tickets, but they should probably be emailing those to you so that you have access to the proper dates and access to the things and stuff like that, because I also believe that the venue itself has actually changed, but it's still on the Vegas Strip. They just went to a different location, so that's going to be really great news for those of you guys who have purchased it. Hopefully you guys are able to get your new updated versions of those tickets, and for those of you guys that were on the fence, including myself, about getting tickets and when that may be appropriate or not appropriate or whatever, it does seem as though we're going to be able to do this in December now, so I may actually go to Star Trek Las Vegas if it's all the way in December, and we're able to kind of make that work with the schedule of my private life and all that jazz. So I'll be curious to see what happens there, but that is really good news. I'm glad that they finally decided to do that. I know there was a bit of controversy a few weeks ago where they were like, we don't want to move it, we'll see what happens, yada yada yada, but that did have something to do with some of the money and the way that the insurance works and how they were able to kind of, you know, try to save costs essentially, which I get it, it's a business and they also have to balance safety and it's a whole rigmarole of issues, but they did what they could, and now we're at the point where we're going to be getting Star Trek Las Vegas. And again, I have heard that this may be Creation's last like official version of the Star Trek convention. They may still can do them, but I do believe that Star Trek as a brand is going to be moving to its own private convention after this year. So this might be the last like official STLV. So if you guys aren't able to go, that sucks. But hopefully I'll be able to go and then I can report it all back to you guys. And then that may be kind of like a celebration of the great years of STLV. Another really fast news story is that William Shatner has once again flip-flopped and said that he is open to returning as Captain Kirk if given the right circumstances. You guys may remember, I think it was actually earlier this year, where somebody like on Twitter asked him directly, hey, are you willing to come back? And he was like, no, the Kirk character's been totally played out. I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. It's a done story. We're over it. And I think after the relative success of Star Trek Picard and the popularity that it did have within the overall fandom of Trekkies, depending on who you ask, I think that William Shatner probably saw that Patrick Stewart was able to do it at his age, and William Shatner's probably like, well, I can do it. But he did say, that he wasn't interested in doing like a cameo or anything like that, or like a guest appearance. He wanted it to be like an actual written character on the show. I don't know if he's going to want Star Trek Kirk necessarily. I don't know if they'll be willing to do that, but that's the only way he would be interested in returning, is if it was more than just a 5-second kind of on-screen cameo or something like that. But I don't know. We'll see what happens there. He does flip-flop a lot. I don't know if they'd be willing to bet money on putting Kirk back on the screen, because then you're going to have people saying, oh, now you guys are just trying to play up the nostalgia card and just try to pull in old fans, and why don't you give us new ideas? Because, of course, everybody wants to complain about everything. And then, of course, you're going to have people saying, well, I don't want to go backwards. I want to go forwards, tell us new stories. And, it's this weird thing where, then the other argument, which is like, you guys aren't giving us the characters that we know and love, so stop with these new characters, give us what we like. There's no winning in these decisions. You just kind of try to do your best, I think, in a lot of these areas. I think Picard was a really safe bet because, and unfortunately, a lot of the supporting cast members of The Next Generation are still alive, so it was able to kind of, they were able to kind of really build around that, the character of Picard, and kind of bring in a lot of those other characters for guest appearances and cameos and stuff like that. Whereas with Shatner, it would be a bit more challenging to do that. It would essentially just be him, and how they would work that is kind of strange. I will say that it is also a possibility, and I don't know if William Shatner would be open to this, where they could do the deepfake thing, where they put an actor on set, and then they put, his face over that actor, and he does the voices, and he does the actual facial, like, motion capture bit, and they kind of work it like that. I know that a lot of people hated the new Terminator movie, including myself. I didn't like that, but there's a scene at the beginning actually had some really fantastic work done by ILM, where they actually superimposed, they had Sarah Connor, they had young John Connor, and they had a young Arnold Schwarzenegger from T2. They superimposed their faces onto these younger actors, and it looked really, really good. And they could do something like that, but that's also extraordinarily expensive to do, so I don't know if they'd be able to build an entire series around that, or how people would react. People might freak out at that concept of putting their faces onto younger bodies and call that cheap, or I don't know. We'll see how it goes. At least in this case, William Shatner is alive, and it's not like what they did with, I think it's Peter Cushing, who played Grand Moff Tarkin from Star Wars, where they just basically made him like this CGI monster inside of Rogue One, and people didn't like that because they were like, well, Peter Cushing isn't alive to say, yeah, you can use that, or yeah, you can't. So we'll kind of see how that kind of plays out a little bit, I guess. But yeah, so he is open again to returning, and I am kind of curious to see how that might play out, or if in another 6 months he's just like, nah, forget it, I actually don't want to do it. Okay, and our final news story for today is that Jason Isaacs, you guys may remember him as Captain Gabriel Lorca from Star Trek Discovery Season 1, has done a recent interview with Trek Movie where he said that he is in talks with CBS to try to come back as Prime Lorca. He said, quote, "Where is Prime Lorca? Well, I admit that we talk. It's not like when Mirror Lorca bit the bullet, there wasn't a clamoring for Prime Lorca, but the thing is, it has got to be a great story. Pike is already there. We know what he is like. We have seen him, and he is great. We don't know who Prime Lorca is. If he is Mirror Lorca's Frank Spencer, like a wimpish character from the British comedy show, his cousin, then nobody wants to spend time with him. He is going to have to be as interesting as ballsy, and have to find him a ship and find him a context to bring him into the story." So this is good news to hear, and I think a lot of people are interested in seeing Prime Lorca. For those of you who have forgotten what happened inside of Star Trek Discovery Season 1 kind of off camera, was that there was an accident that sent the USS Buran into getting destroyed, and then Prime Lorca was sent into the Mirror Universe, and the Mirror Universe of Lorca was brought into the Prime Universe, and that's who we were interacting with inside of Star Trek Discovery, who then of course got vaporized by the Charon's exposed warp sun thing that was powering that giant city ship. So he got zapped away like that. So we know that he is dead, and clearly based off that conversation, I think it's kind of understood that Mirror Lorca is gone. But what about the Prime Lorca? Was he able to survive in the Mirror Universe? And I don't know if they would be able to bring him back inside of the Star Trek Pike show, the Strange New World show. It would be very interesting if possibly part of one of the overarching plots of that show throughout the seasons that we may get, that one of them is to try to bring back, Prime Lorca, or possibly even just try to explore a little bit of the Mirror Universe. I don't know if that's going to be something that they'll do. That would be kind of interesting, but I don't know if they're going to kind of try to shove that into the Pike elements. That might be trying to put, a square peg in a round hole, but they could bring back Prime Lorca as a, essentially like a short trek, maybe do like a 2-part short trek where we get to see him kind of get zapped into the Prime Universe. He has to kind of assess where he is and then try to survive there and see if he's able to make it back or make a living, working with the Resistance, or make a living some other way inside of the mirror universe. I think that would be kind of interesting. They could do like kind of an extended two-parter kind of short trek, or maybe like a really longer, like a solid 30-minute short trek where they kind of explore what happened to him after he got sent into the mirror universe. I think it would be fun. I like Jason Isaacs as an actor. I think I think he's very, very talented. I know a lot of people have different feelings about him with his remarks from, earlier from season 1, where he was kind of going after Trekkies and kind of battling people in certain ways, and people didn't really like that. And he was kind of rubbing people the wrong way. But, putting the individual Jason Isaacs aside, him as an actor is very good. And I'd be very interested to see the idea of a Prime Universe character really trying to live and survive, not just for a short one-off single episode where they have to get back immediately into the Prime Universe, but really try to survive there for an extended period of time, like for months or even years. They could do kind of time jumps and stuff like that. That would be a lot of fun. I don't know if it's a good idea to shove him into the Pike show. There is potential there because they obviously have a full season, several seasons, of like 10 to 15 episodes. Whoever knows how many they're going to be doing. So they do have the opportunity to kind of go about doing that. But I don't know if that's necessarily a good idea. That might try to over bloat the Pike show a little bit too much, and they may be trying to distance themselves a little bit from the whole Discovery situation, because obviously that one is still one of the most kind of controversial Star Trek shows out there, which people either really like it or they really hate it. But I kind of found myself in the middle where it's like, okay, like they're getting better, but I'm still not like really loving it just yet. But they may try to kind of keep themselves a little bit distant from that. So we'll see what happens there, but I am curious to see if that actually happens. I think that'd be a really fun, cool character story. Okay, guys and gals, that wraps up today's Earl Grey Pour Up. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me and sticking through me all of these weird different kind of settings that I'm having to deal with, and all of these different issues with the video cameras and the audio and all this other jazz and stuff like that. So I appreciate you guys and gals being supportive during that time and sticking with me. And go ahead and throw up your comments down below if you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Bill Shatner. What do you think about the idea of doing a deep fake with him onto a different actor? Do you think that's a weird idea or not? And are you excited to see the possible return of Prime Lorca? Is that something that you would be interested in seeing, and how would you want that? In the Strange New World show with Pike, or kind of like its own separate thing with like a short trek or something like that, and he's kind of just surviving inside the mirror universe? I'm curious to hear what you guys and gals think about that. Please throw up your comments down below, and we'll go ahead and get the conversation started. Live long and prosper, my Trekkies!